Welcome to Mr. Butterworth's AP United States Government and Politics class. In this first lecture, we're going to introduce the political ideals that English colonists brought with them to North America and eventually became the underpinnings of our Constitution and the pillars of our government system. Contrary to popular belief, the American political experiment did not begin in 1776. The colonies had been schooled in self-government since the early 1600s, drawing on traditions and philosophy all the way back to the 13th century. For our purposes, we're going to flash forward to the Enlightenment, specifically the European Enlightenment philosophy. We're going to introduce four philosophers, three of which you need to know for the AP exam, and one of which is indispensable for understanding those three. But first, we need to know what the Enlightenment is. Generally speaking, the Enlightenment was an intellectual and philosophical movement that became a powerful force in the world during the 18th century, but it has its roots in centuries well before that. It is not an understatement to say that the Enlightenment helped create the modern world. Key components included a shift from conservatism or preservation of the past to the idea of liberalism or progress. A shift from the trust in the supernatural to trust in the autonomous individual, and a heightened sense of skepticism. Skepticism both in the authority of religion, i.e., authority is rooted in objective science, not tradition, revelation, or even the church, and authority of the absolute monarchy. The right of the individual is supreme. Key doctrines of the Enlightenment include reason, or trust in the natural instead of the supernatural, and trust in rationality rather than religion, and liberty, i.e., morality is considered legalistic constraints on the individual, and finally, free thought, i.e., we can engineer a better world through the scientific method. In terms of government and politics, it's not hard to see how these ideas would have dramatic consequences. And a radical shift from the idea of the divine right of kingship would give way to a new foundation for legitimate government, the social contract. For Enlightenment philosophers, understanding human nature was absolutely essential to understanding civil government. For one such philosopher, Thomas Hobbes, the state of nature was an anarchical period of absolute freedom. In this state of nature, life was a chaotic and violent war of all against all. In his philosophical treatise Leviathan, published in 1651, Hobbes argues that to escape this war of all against all, man agrees to suspend or give up some of his freedom to live at peace with each other. This is what political philosophy calls the social contract. It is an agreement to abandon certain natural rights in order to find freedom in a single-body politic, the Leviathan. For Hobbes, this was still an absolute monarchy. 30-some-odd years later, another philosopher named John Locke critiques and develops the Hobbesian social contract theory. Like Hobbes, Locke examines what life was like before the social contract, before government, in the state of nature, and argues that natural law, or the law of God, which is reason, entitled man to life, liberty, and property. Like Hobbes, Locke argued that men come together to secure life, liberty, and property by joining together and suspending certain freedoms and consenting to a sovereign power. Where Locke differs from Hobbes is that if the government has violated this contract, i.e., a lack of representation in Parliament or taxation without consent or violations of liberty, the public has the right to rebel against the sovereign. Therefore, the sovereign must be bound, must be limited by a constitution that separated its administrative powers. And Locke's second treatise would be a bestseller. Everybody read it. Most American colonists who had the ability to read had absorbed Locke's works as a kind of political gospel. Our second philosopher that you need to know is Jean-Jacques Rousseau. Rousseau was influenced by Locke and published The Social Contract more than 100 years later. It begins with an opening line that says, "Man was born free, and everywhere he is in chains. Was there a problem with unlimited liberty in the state of nature? Sure. But now a fundamental human problem was Leviathan itself. The problem is government. For Rousseau, the sovereign, or government, was only legitimate insofar as the government was the, quote, general will of the people. This gives birth to the idea of popular sovereignty. Rousseau was a proponent of direct democracy. He was a radical, but his ideas influenced America's representative government. And lastly, Baron de Montesquieu. Montesquieu argued that a government whose sovereignty was split up into three administrative bodies, an executive, a legislative, and judicial, could check the power of each. You cannot have checks and balances without separation of powers. These ideas become the framework of United States government. Locke's ideas of limited government, Rousseau's popular sovereignty, separation of powers, and Montesquieu's checks and balances, all built on this Hobbesian foundation of the social contract. When you come to class, be prepared to talk about how much liberty should citizens give up. How can we determine if the social contract has been violated? And do you think the social contract is functioning properly in American government today?